Hey everybody, this is Perch. I know I complain about villains in comics, and in particular, why we don't see greater prominence for villains, why we don't treat villains as greater threats, why we don't take these characters and make our heroes really struggle to overcome them. I've had a couple people push back on that, and there's always one in the videos who's like, "Oh, it sounds like you just like bad things. Only bigots like villains." And it's like, no, I still want the villain to get beat. I just want the beating to be meaningful. I do want the heroes to overcome. I mean, it would be a pretty crappy comic if every month the hero went to fight the villain and the villain just beat them. And then the comic ended. And then next time the hero, cleans himself up and then they go find another villain, the villain just wins. No, I do want the hero to beat the villain. But I do like the hero struggling to beat the villain because it makes the journey more meaningful. It makes that victory sweet. I think one of the things that kind of the jokey aspect of movies, and I mentioned this in the other video, the Joss Whedon, I can just knock out a villain with one punch kind of joke. It's ruined a lot of things because a lot of people want to have that same joke. But what was once subverting expectations, you're expecting a big fight with the villain and the hero just easily overcomes it. Not even, barely an inconvenience, not a problem. That's no longer subverting the expectation. That is the expectation, that the heroes will have no trouble, barely break a sweat doing this kind of stuff. So it's not that I want villainy to sweep over comics. I mean, it's a weird thing to say anyway. I think if you read comics to always see the villains win, you're probably not reading comics. That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense as just a reader. It would just be weird. And you'd be living in the worst of all times right now since the villains are pretty much easily mowed over. But some of the best character moments we've seen has been heroes getting beat down and having to claw their way back up. The X-Men became, I think, such a big fan favorite comic because the X-Men were the underdogs. They were feared and hated by humans who didn't understand them. They had to live underground. They had to hide their identities. They faced both villains and bigotry at the same time, and they definitely were not on top, just coasting through life. Marvel is doing this thing in December where the variant cover scheme for December is called Villain's Reign. And it's more or less kind of tied into the Devil's Reign idea. I'm not sure entirely why. Devil's Reign, I don't believe, includes some kind of mind control device where heroes act like enemies, but maybe part of the deal here is the Kingpin is going to screw with the heroes by taking away some of their, by basically making them villains in the eyes of the public. So the Thunderbolts can, his team of villains, it's kind of the Dark Reign, swap of you convince the people that the villains are the heroes and the heroes are the villains, and then everybody goes nuts. So at any rate, we get these variant covers, and there's a handful of them here. And basically, it takes the hero, and then they dress up as the villain, or they're posed as a villain. So we get the Hulk as Kingpin by Pete Woods, which looks pretty cool. We get The Thing as Death by Dan Panosian, which is also okay. I'd like to see actually more of that. It's a close-up. We get Black Panther as Sabretooth, which is fine. We get Mary J. Watson as Nightmare, which I couldn't really tell that it was Nightmare, but okay. It's, still looks kind of creepy. All right. We get She-Hulk as Kraven the Hunter, which is just thoroughly odd. We get Captain America as Princess Python. And I do have to stop here and say, what? Seriously, Marvel, Princess Python? You couldn't have Captain America. I mean, Princess Python becomes Cap. You get Lintel Francis Yu to draw it. What are you thinking there? I mean, it's a cool enough looking costume, but I especially like the shield. It has a little snake around it. That's kind of clever. But yikes! I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. We have Doctor Strange, who's dead apparently, as the Ringmaster, which you can kind of vaguely barely tell. And then you have my personal favorite, Captain Marvel as Mole Man. I mean, Marvel. You don't want people to knock Captain Marvel, and you talk about kind of the hateful internet trolls who are constantly insulting Captain Marvel, and then you decide for the variant cover, rather than have Captain Marvel as, I don't know, anything else. You could have her as Death. You could have her as Thanos. You could have her as, you could do whatever you want there. You chose Mole Man. You have to know this is going to get mocked just endlessly. You have to know this, right? I mean, is this one where you're giving it to the fans? You're like, this is why I always think, by the way, and I've argued with people on other videos over this. I think Marvel is trolling you, all of us, a lot more than people think. I think some of these comments that people get all outraged about on Twitter from editors and everything else, I think these are planned. I think these are, I do not think this is unintentional half the time. And I think if you're doing a Captain Marvel as a villain, and for that matter, the Captain America as Princess Python, people are going to crap on you for that. And you put Captain Marvel as Mole Man. I mean, this makes me think they're trying to get this variant cover sold to a bunch of the legacy They know that there's a bunch of comic store customers out there who are upset with the transformation of Captain Marvel, and they're hoping that people are going to spite buy this. That's what I believe anyway. But regardless of all this, I think villains. I mean, the challenge here that you have is that comic books are generally they're short, 22 pages. You got to get a threat out there. You got to hook the reader with a threat, and then you've got to keep them dangling for 30 days to the next threat or the cliffhanger, whatever you're doing with the storyline. And so if you are if you take away the villains as something sinister, something that actually is going to cause problems, if you take away that threat, then you've taken away one of the huge tools in order to hook people to get them pulled in. And I think that's that's the problem here. And that's where you remove the villain, you remove a lot of the incentive to buy into this 22-page comic, let alone the price. And you buy a lot of you let go of a lot of the tension and the threat to keep them coming back month after month. So, if you're looking at 2022, the smartest thing you could do as a comic publisher is put some focus on making the villains big, threatening, and not in a meta way. I think DC did this this whole Year of the Villain thing, which was not a bad idea. Unfortunately, the execution became more silly. It all seemed to revolve, all roads led back to the Batman Who Laughs. They got into Death Metal, which was, look, all these other evil versions of Batman. We got them running around and everything else. And so it wound up, in many ways, diminishing the villains more than elevating them, because the villains that were going to survive this event, unless the plan for DC was to basically have Batman be both the hero and the villain for every single comic that they publish, which they're kind of on that now. But this idea of a Batman Joker type villain or evil Batman villain, it got old fast, and it came at the cost of a lot of DC's very rich tapestry of villains that had to play second fiddle to multiverse Batmans. But anyway, I digress. We'll wrap this up. One thing that's happened today, which is more or less sad, not more or less sad, it just is plain sad. Of course, the passing of Norm Macdonald. And it was nice to go onto Twitter and see a lot of people just, saying rest in peace, Norm Macdonald. And you didn't get people in there wanting to throw out commentary about why he was problematic for some joke he told 10 years ago or anything. There were a couple. Tamara Bonvillain did not disappoint, but most people simply respected this comedian who was very funny. The best part about Norm, I think, was always his timing. He just had incredible sense of storytelling and pacing. He could read the room. He could know exactly when to kind of fire out his the right joke at the right moment with the right pitch and the right setup. He's just very, very solid where that was concerned. And so I'll miss Norm Macdonald. I think he was a absolutely class act and a great comedian that we lost. A lot of people could really learn from that. He's got a joke about a moth walks into a podiatrist, which is like one of the funniest bits that I've ever heard. And he was always on tap. So I think a lot of comic writers, frankly, could learn a lot from Norm Macdonald as somebody who could understand how to pace out a story and understand how to deliver things in just the right way to get people to buy in and go along for that journey. There's a lot of comic writing and other things that I think stand-up comics, really great ones that can take you on this journey. I think there's Dave Chappelle's another one that I think can do an hour-long set and tie it all together in a really clever way. And I think there's a lot to comic writing that fits that. But anyway, rest in peace, Norm Macdonald, one of the greats. Thanks for listening.